Touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome into The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I'm your host, Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown, Alabama. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, subscribe to the notification bell, be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. On today's episode, I want to take a look at a couple of different things, a couple of different prospects across multiple recruiting classes, as I've had an opportunity to be on the road quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. But I also want to start today's show off by talking about the transfer portal. It looks as if the Crimson Tide are going to be shopping there, and when they shop there this time around, it looks as if they're going to target some defensive backs. Keep in mind, the Crimson Tide did lose two defensive backs during spring practice, and Traquan Fagans, and also losing Jacorey Whitted, who has announced his commitment and transfer to the destination, as he will transfer to Colorado to play with Deion Sanders in the Buffaloes. But when we take a look at the Crimson Tide offering new defensive backs in the portal, you have a couple of guys. One of those guys is the most recent guy to pick him up from the Crimson Tide. His name is Trey Amos, who played his last couple of football seasons at the University of Louisiana Lafayette. He actually entered the transfer portal on Monday evening around 6:30. He reported an offer from the Crimson Tide, I think, less than 30 minutes after that. He started reporting a couple of different offers, and the first offer that he reported was that offer from the Tide. So it is obvious and it is clear the Crimson Tide want to add experience depth to their secondary. And if you take a look at the Crimson Tide's 8-day performance, I wouldn't say the secondary was terrible or anything, but it is clear the Tide want to add some experience depth to that group. When you take a look at that group, you have a trio of guys who have had a significant amount of playing time at the collegiate level. When you take a look at those guys, you have to look at but Alabama players like Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and also Malachi Moore. To go along with the guys with transfer portal for the Crimson Tide, they also lost an experienced cornerback and Kyrie Jackson when he transferred to Oregon. So the Crimson Tide lost a good bit of their secondary. When you think about it, you add those guys with the portal, Fagans and Robinson, you add them with Kyrie Jackson. You also add the fact that they lost Battle, they lost Helms, they lost Brian Branch, they lost Eli Ricks. That's a good amount of guys to lose, and those were guys who had a little bit more experience outside of Fagans and Robinson. Those other guys had significant amount of experience. So the Crimson Tide want to add depth to that position, and Trey Amos is a guy that they are looking at, a guy who played cornerback for Louisiana Lafayette. Like I said, hit the transfer portal on Monday and announced that he has 2 years of eligibility remaining. When you take a look at Amos, like I said, he's a Louisiana prospect, was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school, 6'1", 189-pounder who had 36 tackles last season and 8 pass deflection. Like I said, a lot of experience. He played a good amount as a freshman at Louisiana Lafayette, so he has had a lot of experience throughout the last 3 years of college football. But he's not the only defensive back the Crimson Tide are looking at when it comes to the transfer portal. They are also looking at Jalen Key, a UAB transfer who they want to possibly keep inside the state and not let him transfer out of it. He's actually a Florida product. He's currently considering Florida State, who I think is very close to his hometown. If he's not from Tallahassee, he's close to that city in terms of what city he is from. But he's considering the Crimson Tide, considering Ohio State, considering a lot of big time programs. Actually, an opportunity to catch up with Key after he hit the transfer portal and visited Alabama on last week. But I talked with him about just his feelings about the Tide after visiting them and getting a feel for the university. And after they got him on campus, he said he feels it is a great environment, even better people. Overall, quite impressive to say the least. It is definitely a reason they have had the success they have had on and off the field, and you could feel it throughout the entire campus. Key is a guy who plans to announce a decision in a couple of weeks later this month, he says, in mid-May. In terms of the factors that he will weigh some factors like the history and continued success of defensive backs at that particular school being cultivated into NFL superstars, and also this past draft will be a big factor. So he wants to see the defensive back development. He wants to see proof of the defensive back development in this past NFL draft. He also looked for an ideal location for his family to travel from Florida to see him play. Of course, lastly, he just want a relationship with the coaches and the programs and ability to set him up after football, whether it be 10 years or 2 years from now. So those are two guys in the transfer portal who the Crimson Tide are looking at. Like I said, the Tide lost those guys to the portal at the conclusion of last season. Of course, Fagans and Robinson recently entered the portal, and it is clear the Crimson Tide want to add depth to that secondary. And those are two guys who they are looking at who have had a significant amount of collegiate playing time. You guys can see their highlights. I'm pretty sure they are on YouTube to check out why the Crimson Tide want to add them in the future. But like I said at the beginning of the show, I've been hitting the road around the state of Alabama over the last couple of weeks, had an opportunity to check out some top prospects, including the #1 cornerback in the 2025 recruiting class, who is in Alabama's backyard. His name is Offord, currently plays for Parker High School in Birmingham, Alabama. A lot of people are drooling over this kid. We literally saw him drooling when we saw his practice. We saw him in action. You guys get to see a little bit of what he brings to the table in terms of practice, but a high-ranking DB coach was in attendance for this first practice. I'm talking about high-level SEC coach in attendance, and he was following this kid around all practice, saying like that. I'm here for number 6. I'm looking at number 6. Number 6, good. He was giving just an impressive review of Naeem and just how he performed in practice. He was really high on him, and I'm pretty sure that is the feeling that a lot of schools are having when it comes to this special cornerback out of Parker High School. An opportunity to catch up with him and talk a little bit about his early recruitment. Of course, he said he feels good to be #1, but he has to continue to get better to stay at #1. Of course, a lot of people are gunning for him with him having that ranking and that rating as the #1 cornerback in the 2025 recruiting class across multiple recruiting sites. Also feels a long list of programs are showing him early interest. Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, a lot of other programs really want this kid. So his recruitment is probably going to get really, really crazy in the future. But similar to Kool-Aid McKinstry, who was the last true #1 cornerback inside the state of Alabama, you could say Jalen Mbakwe is the #1 cornerback inside the state, and he could be in the conversation to be the nation's #1 cornerback as well. But most people just view him as an athlete due to his athleticism and his ability to possibly be a wide receiver at the next level. So the state of Alabama continues to develop and produce top players, and Naeem Offord is just going to headline one of the most impressive recruiting classes inside the state of Alabama when it comes to the 2025 class. I'm Jeremiah Beeman. Is a guy who we talked about on this show a lot. He's actually Offord's teammate. Beeman, 4-star defensive lineman out of Parker High School in Birmingham, one of the Crimson Tide's priority defensive lineman targets in the 2024 recruiting class. He has a long list of programs going after him really, really hard at the moment. Actually plans to take 2 official visits. Alabama will get one of those, and Texas will get one of those. It is important to mention that these are not the only 2 programs who will get official visits from Beeman. Other programs like Georgia, Florida, Clemson, Miami, and a long list of other programs are trying to get one from him. And one thing that's really important to remember is that after July 1st, there's no limit on official visits. In the past, it has been a limit. You only could take 5. After July 1st, you can take as many as you want. Of course, you can't take multiple to one school unless there's a coaching change, but with this new rule, you can take as many as you want after July. So he is keeping his options open. It wouldn't surprise me with this new rule that a lot of guys who possibly wanted to announce before their senior seasons and take all of their official visits in June, those plans may look a little bit different now with that new rule in place, where you possibly can take as many official visits as you want. Especially like top elite guys, they probably can take 10 to 20 official visits easily. So that is something to keep in mind with that new rule being in place. Beeman was on the campus of University of Alabama for a day. Said he loved it. Had an opportunity to talk with Coach Roach, who is leading the push for him. Had an opportunity to meet with Najee Harris, who was in Tuscaloosa for a day. So the Crimson Tide remain in a really good position with Beeman at the moment. An in-state recruit who the Crimson Tide seem to be trending upwards for is Jordan Ross. I've talked about him on the last couple of shows here, and I've always said the Crimson Tide have a little bit of work to do with them, but it looks as if they are showing some improvement. And the thing that is going to be really important for the Crimson Tide, and I think is going to benefit them in their push for Ross, is that he plans to wait his recruitment out a little bit. He wants to possibly announce a commitment decision in December. So most likely during the early signing period. So a lot can happen from now until December. He plans to take 4 official visits at the moment to Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, and Texas. Similar to Beeman, he could take those official visits in June and take 4 of them, and on July gets a fresh slate. Of course, he can't officially visit those programs again, but he can officially visit as many programs as he wants to in the future. But like I said, the Tide are trending upwards with the impressive athlete. We talked about him on the process quite a bit. He's a guy 6'4", looks the part. Easy to tell. He had an opportunity to see him had an opportunity to see him practice recently. That is where this footage is from. We actually plan to be in attendance when McAdory takes on Vestavia Hills in their spring game in a couple of weeks, and we get an opportunity to see him in action for the first time. But like I said, the Tide is trending upwards with him. Had an opportunity to ask him about his relationship with the Crimson Tide. He said it's pretty great. I went there for the 3rd time, which was A Day, and it was great. I had a great experience. I talked to most of the players about it, and they say they love it. I asked why did they join Alabama, and they said to play with the best competition. So he's trying to get a feel for Alabama's coaching staff, who is constantly and consistently telling him to get back to campus as much as possible so he can get a feel for the program. But he's also doing his research, doing his due diligence, and talking to Alabama players and seeing how they feel about Alabama and their experience, and just get a feel for the program. So I feel the Tide are trending upwards. So Timmy said he does feel the Crimson Tide will get an official visit from him, and he said it'd probably be later. He said it'd probably be around December. And Alabama fans who have followed recruiting, it may excite them, because a lot of times guys who wait to take those official visits late, specifically in-state guys, big-time in-state guys, the Crimson Tide have had a lot of success with guys who have done that. Take a look over the last couple of recruiting classes of guys like Curtis Perry. This last recruiting cycle, have guys like James Smith and Quay Rousseau. So that is the latest with Ross, who looked really, really good when we saw him in action during spring practice. We look forward to actually seeing him in action on next week. Is it next week? In a few weeks, when they take on McAdory in that spring game, and they will take on Jacorey Whitted, a 2024 6'5" tight end out of McAdory High School, who I saw practice a couple of days. I want to say a couple of days, like last week or so. Sorry, my days are getting mixed up. I've been to a lot of different places, but Whitted, like I said, is a McAdory product. Will take on Vestavia. He's a guy who the Crimson Tide are looking at in this 2024 recruiting class. The Crimson Tide's defensive line coach Freddie Roach, who recruits the state of Alabama for the Crimson Tide in a lot of different areas. He's actually been in contact with it pretty much every day. He said he feels that they like his physical presence as a tight end. You're looking at a 6'5", 220-pound athletic tight end out of McAdory, who the Tide offered in January. Had high praise for the Tide when they offered him. He said he wants to take an official visit to Alabama. He said that's the only school he knows right now for a fact that he wants to officially visit. So the Crimson Tide are in a really good position with him. The schools he listed that he feels are recruiting him the hardest are Alabama, Auburn, and Tennessee. Auburn was actually in attendance for that practice. So Whitted is a guy to keep your eyes on, and we'll get our first opportunity to see him play on next week when McAdory takes on Vestavia Hills in their spring game. So stay tuned to our YouTube channel and our other social media platforms so you can get updates on that matchup. The last thing I want to talk about on today's show is the Crimson Tide's 5-star quarterback commit Julian Sayin, who some may have questions for after the Crimson Tide picked up Tyler Buckner from the transfer portal, giving the Crimson Tide 5 scholarship quarterbacks on their roster, and all of those guys have eligibility remaining. So it's not crazy or not out of the ordinary to think that those all 5 could be back next year, which is, I guess, would be kind of crazy if all 5 of them came back. You would think that a guy would transfer. You wouldn't be surprised if a guy transferred as soon as that happened, or even transfer before the season. Transfer at some point, with there being 5 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. But I asked Sayin about it, and he basically told me that he's excited to see Tyler Buckner. They actually share a common trainer out of California, a guy by the name of Danny Hernandez, a quarterback mentor out of Los Angeles, who actually worked with Bryce Young in the early part of his career. He was actually Bryce Young's quarterback coach before he transferred to Mater Dei High School. So he has a long history of working with some of the top quarterbacks in California, and Tyler Buckner was one of those guys, and Julian Sayin is currently on one of those guys. So he said he's excited to see Tyler Buckner in Tuscaloosa. He has a great relationship with them, so Sayin is still locked in with the Crimson Tide. Tyler Buckner coming to Tuscaloosa does not impact his decision. Sayin looks as locked in as I've seen any prospect when it comes to Alabama's 2024 recruiting class, aside Jalen Mbakwe, who has shut down his recruitment. But those guys look locked in with the Tide, Sterling Dixon as well. So there's the update I want to provide you guys with. Those updates I want to provide you guys with today on this episode of The Process. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. As always, before you leave, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, subscribe to the notification bell, be notified and drop content on our YouTube channel. Then head over to the Touchdown Alabama app. You can find the app in the Apple App Store if you have an Apple device. You can find the app in the Google Play Store if you have an Android device. With that app, breaking news notifications can be sent to you by the staff here at Touchdown Alabama. As always, I am Justin Smith, the Director of Recruiting for Touchdown Alabama.
Process.